He looks around the room, but everything appears normal, and he goes about trying to get back to sleep when he catches Annabelle at the bottom of his bed.
Doing what?
Well, to begin with, she's just looking at him, and he's almost paralyzed with fear, though. And then Annabelle starts to climb up the bed
Shit.
onto Lou's chest, and then starts to strangle him.
What? Is this real? Welcome to the Compendium, an assembly of walls that talk and dolls that walk. Prepare for a journey where reality blurs into the mysterious.
Sounds like that could be very fitting for Halloween week.
What do you mean? Of course that's fitting. I've been working on that all week. Do you like it?
It's good. It's good. It's building a nice spooky atmosphere.
Exactly. And that's it. You're completely right. Today is our Halloween episode. Can you believe that we've got to, I think, like 30 episodes?
30 episodes, yeah. We started this, in February? March?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Time flies, huh? For those of you tuning in for the very first time, I am your host, Kyle Reese.
And I'm your co-host, Adam Cox.
You're listening to The Compendium, an assembly of fascinating and intriguing things. We're a weekly variety podcast where I, Kyle Reese, tell Adam Cox all about a topic that I think he'll find both fascinating and intriguing. From groundbreaking events to unforgettable people, we do this all in a 1 hour-ish episode, giving you just enough information to stand your ground at a social gathering.
So, for this week's All the Latest Things, what have you got for us this week? Anything Halloween related?
Oh, not quite Halloween related, just something that just stopped me in my tracks.
Okay.
Okay, where is it? So, of course, this is coming from the Sun newspaper, so you know it's going to be pretty good.
And take with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, it's not true. It's not a serious story. I want you to cast your mind back to when we first started going out.
Okay.
All right, some of the insecurities that maybe as a newly kind of couple getting to know each other, some of them may be the anxieties that we might have had.
Okay.
So a good example would have been you would come over to my house for the whole weekend. Then you would leave and you would be absolutely busting for a fart because you've been keeping it in. Because you don't want to really fart in front of your partner, especially a new partner very early on, right?
Yeah, you want to wait until, you're a few months in for that.
Do you know what? I just cannot believe the amount of farts that you can keep inside your body when you are motivated by a new love.
Okay.
Because I can't even keep a fart in for 5 minutes anymore. It's got to come out.
Okay, where's this going?
Okay. So it's a Sun article, and it focuses on a 30-year-old woman called Kaylee who's got a story, whose story somehow the Sun found for some weird reason compelling enough to print. So Kaylee tells a story of how, at the beginning of her new relationship with her boyfriend, how she came face to face with an awkward dilemma of needing a poo while spending the evening with her partner. So she tells the Sun about how paper thin the walls are, and she was fearful that her boyfriend would hear her using the toilet. So she decides that she would head to a different part of the house and poop in a Tesco's bag for life.
Right, okay.
And she even jokes, every little helps. Hang on.
So actually, she's in another part of the house. She's not in a bathroom when she's doing this.
No, because the bathroom was close to the bedroom where her fellow was sleeping.
Oh my God.
So she decides, I imagine, to creep down to the kitchen, grab a Tesco's bag for life bag, have a crap in the bag in the kitchen, just so her boyfriend wouldn't be able to hear her pooing in the toilet.
But then what about cleanup job?
Oh, okay. So she used a tea towel.
Oh my God.
To clean it up. And then she just dumps it all in the bin. But she said it worked because he never knew that she had gone for a poo. And to her, that was a win.
Right.
And yeah, victory.
Victory. Yeah, but now she's in the Sun newspaper. Is she still going out with this guy?
Yeah, they're still together. And apparently he says that he's not surprised.
Sounds about right.
Oh, God. And it made me think, God, some of the things that we would go through when we first got together, we didn't want to poo in front of each other. That's the last thing you want to do.
I still don't want to do that.
That's all my latest things for this week.
Interesting. Yeah, nice story there.
You're welcome.
My latest things for this week, it's not really a latest thing. It's more of some fun facts about Halloween because I thought...
Okay, carry
I thought it'd be, good to reel off some stuff about Halloween.
Oh, did you know? Go.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Number one,
Mhm.
did you know that Halloween's origins started around 2,000 years ago?
Probably, because it's like a pagan thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think it could be traced back to some ancient Celts. So these were people that lived in Ireland, the United Kingdom, northern France, and they celebrated a festival called Samhain, something like that. Samhain, something like that. It's spelt Samhain, but I think it's pronounced Samhain.
Okay.
Anyway, so that.
Oh my God, Halloween, that's so him.
So they would celebrate it on October the 31st. And it's a day before Aztec, Toltec, and Mayan cultures were celebrating Dia de los Muertos.
Hang on, am I correct in thinking that the Mayans and who else? The Aztecs.
Yep.
They're on the other side of the world, right?
Yeah, and you might know that day as Day of the Dead. So, that's when the Celts would do it a day before them, essentially. And it basically marked the day before the new year, the start of winter, and a time when the dead were believed to return to the earth.
Oh, really? Isn't it just incredible? Like, they are essentially thousands of miles apart. Yet, human beings, especially like during the Bronze Ages and the Iron Ages and things like that, were so connected to the land. Because, of course, all these celebrations, Halloween and things like I can't think of any others, but Halloween is so connected to the harvest and the seasons and the sun, that they develop these different festivals and rituals associated with these different seasons. Isn't it crazy?
It is. And I guess you can kind of understand it if you're seeing like all these plants die and everything that came to life in the summer is now dying. It's getting colder. The nights are darker and everything like that. I guess it must be like a common thing ingrained in the human body to celebrate death.
Yeah, I guess so. And like thanking the gods for everything that they've given them during the fruitful summer and spring months, and then in the hope that they will return the favor again the next year.
Yeah. So I've got another fact. The next one is about trick-or-treating. So this apparently came from a tradition called souling. It was during the Celtic festival that poor children would go door to door begging for food and money. And then in exchange for their generosity, children would pray for the souls of recently lost loved ones.
Okay.
And so that's why it was called souling. And so that's where trick-or-treating originally came from.
So where does the candy come into this?
The candy, I think that's a thing that came from like the 80s. That's when it really started to get popular, I think, or mid 20th century. Right. But before then, people would hand out like apples and other kind of fruits, nuts, things like that before it became chocolate bars.
I see.
So my next fact is about how Halloween got to America. So whilst there were people in America that were kind of aware of the traditions, it wasn't until a lot of the Irish and other European immigrants arrived. I think it was because of like the potato famine that happened. So when they went over it in the second half of the 19th century, it's them that kind of really spread the news of Halloween. And that then basically went across all of America.
As a result of the potato famine?
Something to do with that. That's when they went over to the
you
Americas.
mean when they were like started leaving?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know enough about the potato famine.
No, I don't know much about it either.
I don't know if that's a podcast episode in itself.
No, it sounds boring.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? So next up is about the jack-o'-lantern. So this comes from Irish folk tales about Stingy Jack, who was eternally doomed to roam the earth at night after making a deal with the devil. And so to guide his way, he lit a coal in a carved-out turnip. And that inspired Irish and Scotch people to do the same.
With turnips, so that's fascinating.
Yeah, but the only reason it went to pumpkins was when the immigrants moved to America, they realized that actually pumpkins were better to carve than turnips.
And also probably because they didn't have any turnips.
Possibly. Yeah.
They're like, we've got no turnips, what are we going to do? Oh, we'll use this big orange thing, pumpkin.
The turnips feel very much like an English-British thing.
Oh, yeah. And they stink as well.
They're not the nicest foods.
No, they're so plain and boring.
No wonder why we have some of the worst cuisine in the world, or known to have.
Yeah, I guess so. Because we eat too many damn turnips and blood sausage. Blech.
Blech. My next fun fact is about how Halloween, believe it or not, was more of a romantic kind of holiday than it was a scary holiday at one point.
What the hell do you mean?
So what would happen at Halloween in the early 20th century was women would play these kind of games, and it was to see who your future love might be and stuff like that.
Go on.
So one of the things they would do is peel an apple, and they'd have to peel the apple skin in a way that they they do it all in one go, if that makes sense. They don't break it.
One skin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a challenge.
Yeah. And so they can't do that. They can't break the skin.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they've peeled the apple skin, they then throw it over their shoulder. And then
the first man it lands on, that's the man you marry.
Even more stupid than that.
Oh, God.
In whatever initial it spell out is the name of, or the first character of the name of the person you're going to marry.
Oh, I see. So a little bit like reading your tea leaves, but no, read your apple skin.
Read your apple skins. So we don't do that anymore. We do apple bobbing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a lost art. Or another one they would do is the cabbage test.
Okay.
For those who were interested in finding out their future partner's wealth,
mm-hmm.
what they needed is a good old cabbage patch.
Okay. Who, the partner?
Yeah, the person. So if you're looking for your future husband or wife, you would need a good cabbage patch that on the 31st of October, what you do is you put on a blindfold,
mm-hmm.
you run into a field of growing cabbages,
yeah,
and you search around the ground for a nice big head of cabbage. And then you'd yank it out of the ground, roots and everything, and then now you'd uncover your eyes and you'd check out those cabbage roots.
Okay.
And then if your roots were intact and there was a good amount of earth still attached, then your beloved one will have oodles of money. If it doesn't have any roots and there isn't much mud, then yeah, you're going to have a poor partner.
It even goes to show, even back then, women's expectations. It's got to have a good salary. How are we going to know? Check his cabbage root. If there's a bunch of them, he's going to be rich.
Yeah. So,
but Mum, he's 5'2". Doesn't matter. He's rich.
He's rich. He's got good roots. So yeah, these things, why have they died a death? I feel like we should still be doing them.
Do you know what? I think we have other crazy, modern day rituals that we do nowadays anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's just, product of its time, I guess.
And then my last one is about the Halloween movie. So, Michael Myers plays the main bad guy in Halloween.
Yeah.
Did you know where his mask came from?
I want to say I do. Is it based on a real life person's face?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, God. Is it a turned inside out mask of someone?
It's not a turned inside out mask. It's an actual mask of someone.
Who is it?
It's William Shatner from Star Trek.
God, what?
So the guy, I think one of the production designer, he found a mask of William Shatner as Captain Kirk in Star Trek. And he used that. He basically just made the eyes a bit bigger, got rid of some sideburns and made the eyebrows, painted it white, gave it black hair. And that is how the mask came to be.
Wow. William Shatner.
William Shatner.
Okay, right. So a Halloween special.
Yes.
But with a twist. This week, normally, I tell you a story that I think that you'll find fascinating and intriguing. But this week, we both have a story for each other.
We do, yeah.
A mini Halloween story.
Yeah, so both kind of creepy or spooky themed. So if you're listening to this at Halloween, it's perfectly timed. If you're listening to this in May on a beach, then just treat it as a spooky story.
But the thing that I have to stress is that when we were planning on this episode, I didn't want us to tell a story that was really rooted in fiction. I wanted it to be something that is very close to reality. So both stories involve very real people, real entities, and real events. And I mean, those events could be called into question, but we're going to suspend our disbelief today and we're going to really lean in to the mystery of these two stories.
Yeah.
So we flipped a coin.
We flipped a coin and it's my turn to go first. My story is all about a doll, the infamous and creepy Annabelle doll. Most people are familiar with the doll because of the film and the Conjuring film franchise. But what not a lot of people know is that the film is actually based on a real doll called Annabelle. More importantly, the origins of the doll is what inspired the events that happened in the movie. And this doll is said to be possessed in real life, being able to move when no one is around, leave mysterious notes, and cause people some serious harm. So the concerns about this doll's paranormal behavior caused the owners of the doll to bring in real-life demonologists to help them understand what was going on, which led these experts to taking the doll away and putting it behind a glass cabinet for safekeeping.
Ooh.
And then on this glass cabinet would be a message that reads, "Positively, do not open." Why positively, I do not know, but do not open.
Sorry, the words positively do not open.
On the front of the glass cabinet.
It'd be like negatively do not open.
Yeah, so
she'll pass you a note.
It doesn't make sense to me why positively. Anyway, but this warning is there.
It sounds very Disney though. I'm positively really excited. That kind of thing. Do you know? Like, I imagine Sound of Music and they're like, oh, I positively couldn't do that. I couldn't eat a whole nother slice of pie. It's very like 1940s, 50s, even before then, 30s language.
I guess so. I don't know what the point of it was. But this warning is there to basically warn off others from ever opening that cabinet again. So let's find out how this all came about. First things first, the original Annabelle doll is not like the porcelain doll that you see in the movies. In fact, the original doll looks pretty harmless. It's a 1970s Raggedy Ann doll. Don't know if you know what it is.
I know Raggedy Ann doll. Yeah.
So it's soft, it's got button eyes, floppy, bright, woolen red hair, and then a stitched-on smile. So it doesn't have these creepy dark eyes or a sinister stare.
It doesn't have those mechanical eyes. You know that when the creepily one of them opens and the other one doesn't? And like when you lean them backwards and like sometimes one opens, one shuts. Yeah. They're on like a hinge. It's not like that?
No, it hasn't got like a lazy doll eye.
Oh, damn. Do you know, when you told me about this episode coming up, I've completely then gotten the artwork wrong for this episode because that's exactly how I pictured her. Like one of those mechanical weird, like a female jigsaw doll.
Yeah.
That's how I imagined her. And that's what the artwork is for this episode.
I don't know. It's a doll. People get it. People know Annabelle from the film franchise and they do probably the real life doll.
And they probably had to change that though, because I don't see a Raggedy Ann doll with a stitched on mouth as a creepy looking doll.
Well, no, look at the doll here. There we go. There's a comparison. Doesn't look like a scary doll, does it?
Absolutely not. I would drop kick that bitch right into the stratosphere if it passed me a note. That's not scary at all. But the one on the left, that's pretty horrific.
Yeah, so I think the film franchise obviously had seen the real doll and went like, we can't make a scary movie about this thing. And so they took some creative license and obviously changing how the doll appeared. But it's still an address. It's still got rosy cheeks and a weird smile. So yeah, that bit's true.
Okay, so I'm intrigued to find out like how this became a bit creepy and haunted.
Sure. Well, it all started in the 1970s where two nurse friends, Donna and Angie, were sharing an apartment together.
Lesbians?
No, I think they're just friends.
Okay.
Donna receives a Raggedy Ann doll as a gift from her mother. Now, you might wonder why a mother would give a 28-year-old daughter a children's doll.
Because she's in a lesbian relationship and she wants to give her daughter and her partner a baby to take care of.
I don't know. I can't verify that. But I would have thought like money, maybe some new clothes, or maybe a house gift, not a kid's doll.
Where did she get it from?
I think she bought it from
like an apothecary, not apothecary, an emporium, a flea market.
Something that's a bit like that. I can't remember the exact phrase, but I think it's like a market, a secondhand doll essentially.
Sure. Okay.
So Donna gets the doll and she's grateful, I guess. I mean, I'm not sure I would be, but she is. And she keeps the doll within her bedroom. Nothing really peculiar happens at first, but within a couple of days of receiving the doll, Donna notices that when she comes and goes by the apartment, the doll has moved. At first, it's kind of like small things. So it might be like facing perhaps a different direction, or she's found with her arms crossed. So when Donna starts to notice this, the doll also starts to move places as well. So even when she consciously leaves the door closed, thinking, okay, maybe I'm just a bit tired, I'm not thinking straight.
Yeah.
She goes and opens the door and finds the doll has moved. So a bit like Toy Story, if you imagine it like that.
Yeah.
So she questions her roommate, Angie, and she's like,
love her.
Well, why would I be touching your toy? You're 28, God damn it. And so when both leave for work and they come home and they find that the doll has moved, they have no explanation for it. And so I think they realized, okay, it's not each other playing a trick on each other or anything. They even start to make notes of how they leave the doll before they go to work to make sure that they're not just forgetting and just being idiots. But the doll still moves. And then one day they discover notes around the apartment. Now, these weren't ordinary notes. They were tiny bits of parchment with the words, help me, help us.
Shit, help us.
Yeah.
Oh my God, a split personality Annabelle doll.
And so they were adamant it's not them because apparently they didn't own any parchment paper in their house, just regular old printer paper. So obviously they're really confused. They're not really quite sure what to make of this. And so they thought perhaps it's one of their friends playing a prank, but then no one else has been in the apartment. They've got no idea. And the messages keep appearing. And so, like rational people, they don't think that the doll is haunted to begin with. Their first thoughts is that perhaps someone is breaking in, and maybe it's a neighbor that's playing pranks.
Or it's one of the girls, the lesbians.
No, because I think they both realize it's not each other at this point.
Yeah, but I reckon it is.
They're not lesbians. That's not confirmed.
I reckon it's the lesbians.
Anyway, so
if there's any foul running about, if there's anything going afoul, it's always the lesbians because they live in the shadows.
I'm not sure they do.
They do. It's true.
Okay. Well, so what was I saying? Yeah, they think it could have been a break-in, like a neighbor. So they look for signs of a break-in and there's nothing. So one night they come back from work and they find that the doll is back on Donna's bed where it belongs. But on closer inspection, when they check on the doll, they find red markings on it.
Ooh.
Now, it's never confirmed exactly what those markings are, but it's believed to be blood. Yes.
Whose blood?
Don't know. What's Annabelle been up to?
Where was the blood?
I think it's just like all either across her face or on her dress. So this is enough for them to think, okay, something is up with this freaky doll. And so they call in a medium. The medium comes into the building, sits down, and tells the girls that the name of the spirit that is communicating through the doll is Annabelle Higgins. She was a young girl whose body was found in the field where the apartment now stands.
Shit.
Now the medium says...
Hang on, so that's suggesting that when her mother gave her the doll wasn't haunted.
Wasn't haunted, no.
But then, because she had died on that spot, she needed some way of channeling into the atmosphere, and she found this doll. She wasn't given a haunted doll. She became haunted.
Yep. So that's the thing. There's something around the place, obviously, where they live, where this spirit came to be and came into Donna's life. And so the medium says Annabelle is still there in spirit form, and she's chosen the girls because they seem like nice human beings. They're really empathetic. Is that the right word? Empathetic? Empathy?
Well, I mean, possibly they're nice, but it sounds like she's awful then. If she's passing them weird notes and shit and...
That bit doesn't make sense, but what the medium's saying is that the doll...
Found them empathetic.
Yeah, and chosen to be with them because they're nice people, they're nurses.
I see.
Everything like that, so happy to be around them. And so Donna feels compassion for the spirit and gives her permission to stay with them. Essentially, they've got like a new roommate called Annabelle, the doll.
And what, they're just happy to live with her? They're not afraid or anything?
At this stage, they're not afraid because there's not been any real trouble.
Hang on. You said at this stage. Shit's about to get real, right?
Well, it starts to get a little bit more creepy now, apart from all the weird notes and the potential blood. So one night, whilst the girls are on a night shift, Donna's friend Lou stays over, as he sometimes would. Now, Lou wasn't particularly fond of the doll, and the doll quickly returns that sentiment. He's in bed asleep, but he suddenly wakes up and feels like something is instantly wrong. He looks around the room, but everything appears normal, and he goes about trying to get back to sleep when he catches Annabelle at the bottom of his bed.
Doing what?
Well, to begin with, she's just looking at him. And so he doesn't break eye contact initially, and he's almost paralyzed with fear, though. And then Annabelle starts to climb up the bed.
Shit.
Onto Lou's chest, and then starts to strangle him.
What?
He tries to fight the doll off.
Is this real? Is this account from him?
This is what he apparently said that happened to him.
Annabelle tried to strangle him.
Tries to strangle him, and he can't break her off, and he blacks out.
She is a raggedy doll, by the way.
But with this spirit of Annabelle, this little girl in the doll, strong enough to strangle a grown man. So he comes to the next morning, and he notices claw marks on his chest, and he's freaked out. And so when the girls, Donna and Angie, learn of this, they're all scared. And, up until this point, it hasn't been an issue, but now things have gotten dark pretty quick. The girls call in a priest called Father Lawrence, and they tell them everything that has happened.
Father Lawrence Llewellyn and Bowen?
I don't think so. I don't think he's there to do any decorating.
Why not? Well, he absolutely should be.
Maybe.
Give Annabelle a makeover. That's why she looks a bit more now, because he was like, sweetheart, this is not going to work.
He does like flowery curtains, which I think she's wearing. Kind of flowery dress. And so Father Lawrence refers the girls to a couple named Ed and Lorraine Warren. Mm-hmm. Now, if those names sound familiar...
They do.
That's because they star in the Conjuring film.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, so they're based on real people. And Ed and Lorraine had adventures in real life tackling demons and ghosts.
Oh, really?
Ed Warren was a self-proclaimed demonologist, which I'm not sure how real that is, or if you can get a doctorate from that.
Because he's self-proclaimed.
Well, yeah, this is what I mean. But how do you know that? Okay, I'm a demonologist. When do you recognize yourself as one of those?
When you're doing it.
fine.
When you've created a niche for yourself,
but then
then you're just doing it.
But then I don't know. What was he studying, or how did he go? Oh, that's a demon.
Because he's going out in the field and he's like chilling out in haunted houses, like getting an order taken from them. I'll have an Aperol Spritz, please, Mr. Ghost. And yeah, he's just hanging out with ghosts.
Well, yeah. Anyway, I find it a bit weird. But anyway, Lorraine, his wife, was a trance medium, which is the art of allowing a spirit to take control of the body, mind, and energy, basically in order to communicate or to speak to the other world through written or verbal communication. Now, they both individually had a draw to the paranormal world from a young age. Lorraine said that she could see auras around people from the age of 8, and Ed grew up in a haunted house. So they shared this common interest, which is one of the reasons they were drawn to each other. They were, I guess you could say, the real world Ghostbusters.
Yeah, they sound pretty qualified to me.
Yeah.
If that's their background.
They said that they've worked on over 10,000 cases over 50 years.
Oh, it's hard work, but it's honest work.
10,000 cases.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, isn't it? And I think they wouldn't get paid. I think they've just asked for like their travel to be reimbursed and hotel stay and stuff like that.
Sure.
They wouldn't actually get paid any money.
So what else are they doing other than this? So they're not really getting paid. They're breaking even every month.
They also have a museum, and they do a lot of kind of like talks and things like this, these events. And so I think they get their money that way. So all these artifacts that they collect and stuff like that.
Haunted items and stuff from haunted houses.
They would put in their museum.
Wow. And this museum exists?
This museum exists. So Ed and Lorraine, they were essentially the go-to people for religious authorities to call in when things got unworldly. After hearing Donna and Angie and Lou's story, the Warrens determined that Annabelle's main goal was to take possession of Donna's soul. So Annabelle was a demon, maybe not this young girl that got found. She was actually a demon. And so she somehow attached herself to the doll. And the Warrens said that demons don't normally possess items or things. Instead, they possess people. And therefore, perhaps this demon wanted to transfer her consciousness to Donna. Essentially, she needed to get to Donna.
Yeah.
And so Ed and Lorraine bring in a priest that exorcises the apartment. They then decide they can't keep Annabelle with Donna anymore. She can't be trusted. And so they take the doll away in order for Donna to survive. And whilst driving the doll back to Ed and Lorraine's place, Ed claims the doll somehow took possession of the car or willed the brakes to stop working.
Really?
And so
I want to go back to Donna.
To go back to Donna. And so to try and get Annabelle to stop, he threw holy water on the backseat of the car, trying to prevent an accident.
Did she sizzle? She's like,
I guess it worked. Annabelle's actually exorcised several times because it's believed that this dark energy remains within her. So Annabelle is now stored in the Occult Museum in Connecticut.
The Occult? Do you mean the Occult Museum?
How would you spell that?
ACCULT?
It starts with an O. Occult.
That's what I said. Occult.
Oh, I thought you said A.
Oh, sorry. Occult.
Yeah.
Did I say A?
Yeah.
I'm so stupid. I'm a stupid bitch. Occult?
Yeah.
But you said occult. It's not a Yakult.
No, I said occult. The Occult Museum in Connecticut.
The Occult Museum?
Yeah.
Why are you saying it weird?
Occult.
Okay, the Occult Museum. In Connecticut. And if you had to ask me to guess which state this is in, I probably would have said like Maine or like up there, Connecticut or Rhode Island.
I can say if you said Maine, then you'd been wrong.
No, I would have been wrong, but I would have been close.
Yeah, okay. So it's a museum that actually, it did exist. It's actually closed down now, but it existed for quite some time. And
so where's Annabelle?
Annabelle's still in the museum. Let me get to it.
Okay, I thought you said it's closed down.
Yep.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Say it again. So the Occult Museum.
So Annabelle has been stored in the Occult Museum, however you say it, in Connecticut. And Ed and Lorraine founded this museum in the basement of their research center. And so, as I said, with Annabelle, there's all these artifacts that Ed and Lorraine have brought to the museum from their investigations over the years. A priest from Hartford once visited the Warrens' home before the doll was put in a glass cabinet. And he didn't take the story seriously, and he threw the doll across the room, proclaiming that God was more powerful than the devil. And on his way back to the rectory, he got into a serious accident with a tractor trailer.
And did he die?
We don't know what actually happened. I think he survived, but he wasn't in a good way. And it's events like this which has made the Warrens put Annabelle in her glass cabinet, which she's believed to still be in, warning people not to open.
Positively don't open.
Positively don't open. A priest would come in regularly to bless the museum, including Annabelle, which helped to contain the evil within her.
Mm-hmm.
Lorraine generally seemed to think that the doll was pure evil and would urge people to treat the doll with respect to avoid bad luck happening to them. She would avoid staring at the doll herself, but that didn't stop the museum putting on tours. During one particular tour, however, a man found the story of Annabelle amusing. He proceeded to bang on the glass case and say something to the effect of like, if you're real, put a scratch on me, or you can't hurt me, that kind of thing.
It's a weird thing to say, specifically, put a scratch on me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quoting that, but it's very specific. Very specific.
Did he end up with a scratch on him?
Well, Lou ended up with scratches on his chest when he was being strangled.
Right.
So maybe it's in reference to that.
Oh, I see. Okay, of course.
But he ignored all the warnings from like the staff and he banged on the doll's box. And whilst traveling home, him and his girlfriend were laughing about the doll when suddenly they crashed. He was killed instantly whilst his girlfriend did survive, but she was hospitalized for over a year.
Over a year?
Over a year.
With what?
I think she was in a coma to begin with and then rehabilitation.
Shocking.
Yeah, it's pretty horrendous. You don't want to cross this doll.
No.
Whilst the museum was still open, you could book a dinner date with Annabelle. You could have dinner in the museum right next to Annabelle in her glass cabinet, and it cost $170 at the time. But guests had to sign a waiver form that said you absolve the host, Lorraine Warren, from any liability or traumatic influence associated with the items or being in the presence of Annabelle.
Do you know what? I think that's just theatre. That just adds to it, doesn't it? That adds to the scariness of it. And I think that's quite fitting that she's a doll and you can have like dinner with her. Like little kid.
Tea party.
Little tea party. Have some tea. You can't have any because you're behind a glass wall. Ha 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 ha.
And yeah, members of the public could go and visit Annabelle as recently as a few years ago. But once Ed and Lorraine died, the museum closed.
Oh, when did they die?
I think like 2010 to 2015.
That's
something
sad.
like that. Yeah, so not that long ago.
Did they not have any kids to leave it to?
They did, and I think one of them perhaps still carries on like investigations.
Mm-hmm.
But there was something going on with, I don't really understand it, called zoning, where the museum is.
Sure, like it's a zoning thing in America. It's a political thing.
Yeah, and that's why it closed down. I'm not quite sure what that's about, but zoning. So as far as we know, Annabelle is still sat inside her glass cabinet.
She's just alone and it's getting all dusty.
Well, we assume she's still in there. Is she out walking around, putting hexes on people?
Yeah.
Not everyone is convinced, of course, of the Annabelle story. Skeptics argue that perhaps there was perfectly reasonable explanations for all these strange occurrences. Maybe the doll's movements were just coincidences. Perhaps the notes were a prank. But a lot of the story is told by Ed and Lorraine, and they were the ones that profited from the doll, not Donna and her friends.
Sure.
So maybe they created or embellished the truth.
Yeah, a bit of motivation there to make a bit more money because they're not being paid, are they?
No, and so I think they've took inspiration from real life events and then made it more exciting, like you said, and then that kind of helps with when you do want to go have dinner with Annabelle, you signing this waiver form. It's all the drama with it. So in the end, Annabelle remains a bit of a puzzling enigma as it continues to mystify and intrigue. The fact she is a real doll and seems to have caused some unusual and very bad luck for people in real life, let alone the films that were created about her, it kind of blurs this line between fact and fiction, making us question what is true and what is a ghost story. And that's Annabelle.
That's the story of Annabelle. I had no idea that she wasn't this porcelain kind of mechanical doll. In fact, she was just a Raggedy Ann doll.
Just a Raggedy Ann doll. The average Ann doll.
I love this type of stuff because there's this very clear boundary between reality and mystery. Like, she is real. She exists. She's a physical thing.
She's in a museum. She was owned by Ed and Lorraine. They were demonologists.
Yeah. And there's like anecdotes and experiences, firsthand experiences of people that essentially know people. Like, fair enough, they're dead now. But Donna and her roommate, they're probably still alive out there if they're young enough.
Yeah.
So that it's rooted in reality and it's current and it's real. And that's what makes the stories really creepy.
Yeah, I think that's why it's such an interesting story and why these films were created, because there's this air of mystery of going, what is real, what is not.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say is because so much of the story is by Ed and Lorraine, there is a question mark, does Donna truly exist? or did Ed and Lorraine create this history?
Oh, the story, this provenance.
For the doll.
Yeah.
And so they would perhaps get in these priests and stuff to bless the museum and do all that sort of ritual, but was it all for show? We don't know. I mean, they believed that they were demonologists and that's how they earned their living.
Yeah. Ooh, creepy. Yeah, so I didn't realize that we don't technically know whether Donna and Angie were even real.
Yeah.
That's a bit disappointing.
And then if the deaths of the guy in the accident, the road accident.
Yeah. Because everything's coming from them too, right?
Exactly. So
yeah, interesting.
I think when people have really tried to dig into it, they haven't been able to find some of the records. Names don't match up.
It's a great story.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
Great. So that brings me into the driving seat. So for my story, we're actually going to be exploring the Winchester Mystery House.
Okay.
Have you heard of this before?
I've never heard of it.
So for this story, we're actually stepping back into a time in the late 1800s, finding ourselves in New Haven in Connecticut.
Oh, Connecticut again.
Yeah, it always happens in Connecticut.
Creepy Connecticut.
Where we meet a woman named Sarah Winchester, a figure who was surrounded by an air of tragedy. She had experienced a cascade of losses that would break anyone's spirit. Her father-in-law had passed away, and not long after, her husband William succumbed to tuberculosis, a deadly illness that claimed many lives during that era. But most heart-wrenching of all was the loss of her only child, leaving Sarah utterly alone. Now, you might recognize the name Winchester because it carried immense weight in the 19th and the 20th century, especially in America. Her husband and her family were the family behind the infamous repeating rifle, which is a rifle with a clever mechanism which meant that its handler was able to fire up to 14 rounds without needing to reload. And this weapon itself reshaped the American West and had become a household name. Yet despite the fame and fortune attached to the Winchester name, it seemed to offer Sarah no shield against the relentless blows of fate. Upon her husband's death, Sarah had inherited half of the Winchester Repeating Rifle Company, which left her with an unimaginable fortune, but also with a heavy heart. Because this was a time when the rifle company had a significant impact on American society, resulting in the deaths of countless lives across the American continent, from Native Americans to warring American soldiers. And their blood was on the Winchester family name's hands.
Okay.
So soon after William's death, overwhelmed by loss and tragedy, Sarah decided to turn to Boston's most famous psychic of the time. And this was a man named Adam Coombs. Now, Sarah was seeking a glimpse into the spiritual realm for a reassuring message from her husband, who she felt was very much present around her even after he had died.
Okay.
But rather than a reassuring message from beyond the grave, Adam Coombs delivered a dark blow to Sarah. He told Sarah that her family had been cursed, and they were being tormented by the relentless spirits claimed by the very weapon that her family had pioneered.
So everyone that weapon had ever killed was taunting Sarah.
That is right. And this vile curse had also been the very thing that had robbed Sarah of her loved ones, and it would eventually claim her life as well.
Ooh.
But through William, the psychic offers a glimpse of hope to Sarah. He tells her that she will be able to evade the curse by building a house, a haven, if you will, for her, the spirits of her family, and all of the restless souls who had fallen by the Winchester rifle.
Okay.
Crucially, though, the psychic told her that the construction of this house was never to stop. For as long as hammers echoed and nails were driven, the ghost would be kept unsettled and also unable to harm Sarah.
So this house can't be completed.
Work on this house cannot stop, because if it does, she will die as a result of this curse.
Oh my God.
So Sarah found herself, obviously, in a bizarre situation. She believed that her family was haunted, cursed even. The souls that had met their end through their family's creation were wandering the afterlife aimlessly as they sought refuge. But what would be a daunting task for most was actually really easy for Sarah, given her unimaginable wealth. Now, since she was the major shareholder in the family's company, she held pretty much a 50% stake in the company. This meant that she had an income of $1,000 a day. Now, adjusted for inflation, this was the equivalent of $26,000 every single day. And this was at a time where there was no such thing as income tax.
Damn. That's like footballers' wages and stuff,
Yeah.
isn't it?
But on top of this, she also inherited a whopping $20 million in cash back then.
Jeez.
Which is over $500 million today. And this made Sarah Winchester one of the richest women on earth. So, on the advice of the psychic, she decided to move to a remote location in Santa Clara in California. And this is where the stage was set. Here, in the quiet, she would begin constructing a house like no other this earth had ever seen before. And this is a real house. It actually exists.
Exists?
It does.
Even today?
Even today.
No way.
Sarah had employed 16 shifts of builders and carpenters who she paid 3 times over the minimum wage in order to guarantee that work would continue 24 hours around the clock, 365 days a year. Construction was never meant to stop.
That must have been ridiculously expensive.
It was, but remember, she's got £26,000 per day to pay for this, right?
Yeah.
And she's worth over $500 million.
So can you take a tea break? Or does someone need to be like hammering a nail constantly?
I mean, she has teams of people.
Yeah.
So they are, yes, they're taking breaks, but there's always someone working.
Right. How do you get to sleep with all the noise going on?
Well, this is the thing. She doesn't, right?
Right.
And I think over the years, she takes solace in having the comfort of knowing that there is movement and activity in the house. So almost immediately when work began, the first order of business was to build a seance room. But this was no ordinary room. It had just 1 entrance and 3 exits. A perplexing design, I guess, but it was designed to ensure that no one would be able to leave through the same room or the same door that they had entered into.
I'm trying to picture that.
Yeah, so initially when I heard this, I was like, but surely all entrances are exits as well.
Yeah.
But I guess if you have only a door handle on one side,
right, okay.
then it means that you can enter through one, but you can't exit through one of those doors. So yeah, it means that you would never exit through the same door that you entered.
I see.
So it was initially believed that the seance room would serve as a place for the grieving Sarah to connect with her husband. Now, spiritualism was kind of on the rise during the late 1800s, so builders didn't find this request strange or unusual. Instead, they pitied her, and they had this kind of sense of compassion for Sarah. So they hurried to complete the room so she would be able to make her connection from beyond. However, as work continued, confusion set in amongst the builders due to the absence of any kind of architect to guide them. Instead, Sarah Winchester herself would emerge each morning with new building plans, as if they had been conjured out of thin air.
Right.
But unbeknownst to them, these mysterious plans were being communicated to Sarah from the spirit world.
Right. It's like, oh, we now need a bigger bedroom and an ensuite and maybe a turret.
Yeah. And then they'd build the turret and they'd be like, oh, we don't like the turret, demolish it. And they'd have to build somewhere else. And to say that the designs were bizarre is 100% an understatement. So rooms would have like windows that looked directly into other rooms. There would be staircases that would lead to like pretty much blank dead ends. There would be stairs that would extend over 50 stairs, but ultimately only rise just a few feet. So there'd be really tiny stairs and they would meander up in like really small steps.
And what is the rationale for that? It doesn't sound practical.
It doesn't. Now, when we look into it a little bit deeper, it turns out that in her later years, like she suffered from chronic arthritis.
Right.
So she could only manage small amounts of stairs, right? She couldn't lift up like the quarter of a foot that a normal stair is.
Right.
So maybe she got these builders to build smaller stairs.
And she's like, oh, it's the spirits, they want these tiny stairs.
Yeah. So there would be doors that would open to reveal nothing but brick walls. There would be secret passages that would lead to whole sections of the house that would offer access to dozens and dozens of different rooms. And the 4 men couldn't help but think if they kept going at this relentless pace, that the mansion would become this labyrinth of this weird absurdity.
Maze, almost.
Exactly. It was as if the house was turning in on itself. That's exactly how they described it. becoming this kind of weird, endless puzzle that just grew more and more complex and less sensible with each passing year. And the charm of the original modest 8-bedroom farmhouse that they originally had bought to start building on had just completely been lost and absorbed into this monstrosity, essentially.
Imagine if you're like a worker working on that house, you want to get the satisfaction in completing the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then using that to showcase what you've built.
Yep.
But you couldn't use that for this house. You'd be like, this is a mess.
Don't get me wrong, the house looks stunning. I'm going to show you pictures of it in a minute.
Oh, cool.
It's messed up. But at the same time, these builders, you've got to remember, they're being paid more than any other construction worker in the city. They're being paid 3 times the minimum wage, right? So they're not going to question.
Fair.
They're just going to keep on building, keep on hammering.
Doing their shift.
Yeah. Even the building material seems to play a weird part in this cryptic story as well, because Sarah's explicit instructions were that the construction could use nothing but redwood, but she hated the sight of redwood. So she also demanded that every single wooden surface be stained and styled to look nothing like the original material.
Oh my God.
And by the end, workers had used a staggering 78,000 liters of paint just to disguise the paintwork.
That is a ridiculous amount. And just, that feels like it defeats the purpose almost.
It does. It almost feels like she's just creating work for the sake of the work. So now, when it comes to the size of this mansion, it was never really finished, but it did reach 7 stories at its highest point. And the estate sprawled over land that could fit more than 160 football fields.
Wow.
And was all allocated to be built on.
Okay.
If she continued to live, she would have continued building. It boasted 161 rooms, 40 bedrooms, 2 ballrooms. You'll also find 47 fireplaces that you can gather around, but not all of them had functional chimneys. There were 17 actual chimneys and traces of 2 more that were never completed, but the others were just fake. The house also had 2 basements, which is bizarre. I mean, to me, that doesn't make sense. You have 1 basement.
Well,
it's under the house, but you have 2 separate basements.
I don't know. You sometimes go to like a shopping mall now. There's sometimes like lower ground and lower ground.
Yeah, possibly. Yes. Yeah.
That's my
lower ground. It had 3 elevators, and astonishingly, it had 10,000 individual panes of glass throughout the entire house. The crown jewel was an organ that was perched inside the attic, as if ready for anyone to provide a haunting soundtrack to a real-life mystery.
Jeez, what houses come with an organ in the attic? You can't even picture how big this is.
Right, so I think now's probably a good time to have a look at some of the photos of the house.
This is a plan of the house.
That is unreal. I can't even... That's a lot.
There's a lot, right? It's massive. Do you want to see an actual picture of it?
Yeah, let's see the actual picture of the house. That's weird. It looks like a housing estate.
It does look like a housing estate, doesn't it? It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's not obvious that they're all joined up. It's like a bunch of terrace houses and courtyards and all sorts in one hotel complex.
It's really well manicured as well.
It is. So this is a recent photo.
Yeah, I only took this from their website the other day.
Okay.
There's an image of one of the ballrooms.
That's what the ballroom looks like. Wow. That's nice.
Weird staircases.
It is quite an impressive looking house. The grounds are huge, aren't they?
It's mental.
Is it a hotel or something? Or do people actually live in it?
It's the Winchester Mystery House, and you can stay in it if you want to. You can pay to stay in it, and they do various tours, things like that. It's just gorgeous. In my opinion, it's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, I'd be happy to stay there as long as the ghosts aren't there. I hope they've moved out.
So the pictures reveal what appears to be like this haphazard collection of structures, as if someone had just placed various pieces of different puzzle pieces together, like not even caring whether or not they even fitted together at all. It was just like this higgledy-piggledy kind of mishmash, like the Warren from Harry Potter, you know, the Weasley's house.
Yeah.
It gives me that vibe, even though it doesn't look like that. But when people are describing it, that's how they're describing the interior. And the house doesn't have merely 7 floors. It has 7 floors of chaos. This kind of architectural labyrinth that's just designed with no clear plan in mind whatsoever. But it's not just the curious architecture and unsettling decor that catches your eye. There's also this weird pattern that seems to emerge throughout the entire house, and there seems to be this peculiar obsession with the number 13 as well, that Sarah had written into all the different plans. One floor boasted 13 bathrooms, each climbing 13 stairs, and within each bathroom you'll find 13 individual window panes within the window as well.
And how did she land on that number? Do we know?
I don't know. It's weird. It's almost like if you are trying to evade spirits, you don't really want to be attracting them with the number 13, right? That's the last thing you want to be doing.
I was going to say, like, wasn't number 13 bad luck?
But at the same time, the psychic told her that you need to build a house refuge for these spirits. So maybe actually that is like acting like a beacon to these different spirits.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But what's bizarre, even though there were 13 bathrooms in this house, only one of them worked.
So they're just for show?
Essentially, they're just for show. No running water. Only one of them had plumbing, and that was the one that she had access to, and that's the only one that she used.
Like, surely you'd have like guest bathroom. I don't know if she's got guests.
She never really had any guests come over. It was really bizarre. She lived in isolation, essentially. Yeah. And so leading up to this bathroom, you pass through a room with 13 wall panels, and that leads you into the carriage area where all the carriages live. And essentially here, there are 13 different slots where 13 different carriages can be parked. And what's incredible is that this is the first time that the world ever sees this area where you can kind of park your carriages kind of undercover. So essentially, she invents the garage.
She invented garages?
Yeah, pretty much.
Not only did she make this crazy house, she invented garages.
She did. So she was quite a pioneering woman in the architectural kind of world, if you will, even though she was receiving all of her plans from the spirit world.
Are you saying we have ghosts to thank for garages?
The idea of the garage came from the afterworld.
Yeah.
Like I could just imagine some kind of busybody ghost going, do you know what? You guys need to learn what garages are.
Yeah.
You need them. Here's a gift from the spirit world to the living realm.
You don't leave your carriage out in the open. Put it away.
So chandelier fixtures that would logically hold 12 gas bulbs were all modified to accommodate a 13. There were also even 13 holes in the sink drains as well that had been custom made just for this purpose as
Very
well.
bespoke.
Some people believe that she was just embracing this number to kind of ward off spirits. However, those familiar with the story might suggest that it's, as I said, like a beacon to draw in the spirits affected by the Winchester rifle kind of company as a safe space for them.
Yeah.
So it's smart, I think.
Smart, yeah.
Sarah was constantly balancing this kind of need to pacify the benevolent spirits while outwitting the malevolent ones.
Yes, keeping them happy, keeping them on side, but then obviously deterring and keeping the bad spirits out.
Exactly. Now, you might think that mirrors are just everyday items, but not in the Winchester house, apparently, because mirrors were forbidden. Out of all 160 rooms across this entire mansion, there were only 2 small mirrors that were found within the premises. And why, you might ask? Well, they say that spirits find mirrors tormenting as a reminder that they're not alive.
Okay.
You can imagine like all the staff that lived or worked in the house, like having to live in a world where there just aren't mirrors. They would smuggle these little mirrors into the house and they would wear them like these little compact mirrors, which were really expensive back then. And maids would carry around these little pocket mirrors at all times, concealed within their uniform, just checking on their appearance in a secretive way.
Why would they need to check on their appearance?
Because mirrors were banned. Why would you not want to see a mirror? You're a female maid, right? You walk around, you want to just check your hair's all smooth and nice.
I was thinking of the builders and stuff like that. Why do they need the mirror to check on their looks?
You know why. There's Bill there putting up a shelf. I'm going to go, drop my feather duster.
That is bizarre. But then I guess, again, the whole mirror thing is to obviously, attract ghosts or spirits.
Yeah, you don't want to upset the bad ones, right? Yeah. Now, it is said that Sarah would host these lavish dinner parties, but not for the living. She would meticulously place out all the different plates and the cutlery sets and all the kind of different things that go along with that for kind of these lavish feasts, inviting the spirits that are dwelling within the house. But when malevolent entities made their presence known, that's when kind of like the maze-like architecture of the house really served its purpose. Because if she sensed that there was an evil spirit tailing her, Sarah would like quickly vanish into a hidden passageway or descend down a staircase leading to nowhere, only then to retrace her steps. And this kind of bewildering design was purely a defense, like a way to throw off the dark spirits from trailing her. This is why there was also 40 bedrooms, because she wasn't hosting large gatherings of human guests. She was also ensuring that she could stay one step ahead of the evil spirits that were seeking their revenge by never sleeping in the same bedroom 2 nights in a row.
Wow.
And that's why there were 40 bedrooms.
That's a lot of bed sheets. And I mean, is she stripping the bed before she moves it onto the next bed? Or does she have 40 sets of bed sheets?
Who knows? Maybe she's not. Maybe she's only slept in it once, so the maid will just make the bed and that's it. But remember, she's not the one cleaning the bed sheets, is she?
That's true.
She's got all these maids.
She is so rich.
She is a rich MF. So in 1906, the San Francisco earthquake brought a different kind of havoc to the Winchester house. Just like that, snap my fingers, the building lost 3 of its 7 stories overnight. But while much of Northern California just completely lay in ruins, crumbled under the force of the earthquake, the Mystery House stood relatively unscathed, preserving the spirit sanctuary they shared with Sarah Winchester. It was also one of the very first houses in the world to have gas lighting and also to have running hot water as well and electricity. So she was employing some pioneering innovations in the building world of the time. So for 36 years, construction went around the clock. Workers took turns to make sure that the building never stopped, always hammering. They were always sawing and painting. But one night in September 1922, after a brief break in the early hours of the morning, Sarah Winchester died in her sleep at the age of 80 years old.
So someone had paused construction and that's when she died.
A moment where all work had just stopped. The team that was on the shift, they'd all just taken a short break. No one was working, and that was the day that she died at the age of 80 years old.
Wow.
So upon her death, Sarah's fortune and all of her belongings were bequeathed to her niece. Now, she was the only surviving family member. Now, mysteriously, another eerie layer to this mystery was in her will, which contained 13 sections and was signed 13 times. And it is documented that it took 6 weeks for removal people shuttling back and forth to empty. That's how much stuff she had in this house.
She was a hoarder.
She was a bit of a hoarder, but she also had some really amazing things as well. Now, strangely enough, despite the house being an all-consuming project for nearly 40 years, Sarah made no mention of what should be done with the house. It was as if like this towering symbol of her obsession and her fears, like her darkest fears, just simply vanished from her thoughts as if like it never existed. She never mentioned it.
That seems really strange. Why would she not want something to carry on, right? Or...
Exactly. Once she had died, maybe it served its purpose. It kept her alive.
Yeah.
And I guess there was maybe no one else in the family. But what about her niece? Was she then not succumb to the curse? I don't know. So for this reason, the house eventually fell into the hands of a local businessman at auction. And many people thought the house was just practically worthless. It had, after all, suffered significant damage during the earthquake and was in desperate need of repair. But the sale price for the house, equivalent at the time, was just $130,000.
$130,000 at the time.
Today's money.
Oh, in today's money?
Yeah, so it was like $5,000 odd.
So $130,000, and this is 4 floors?
4 floors, 161 rooms.
That is a steal.
It's an absolute steal. So the businessman probably thought that he was getting a good deal as well, but little did he know is that he just bought a house that was essentially cursed, that was built for these spirits that were roaming the world. So the question is the Winchester Mystery House really haunted? And that's the burning question that I now want to delve into real quick. Because, you see, some say that the maze-like mansion was a playground for over 1,000 ghosts. With that many around, it stands to reason that at least one would make its presence known, right?
Yeah.
So over the years, countless investigators and psychics have braved the night within the walls of the Winchester Mystery House, attempting to find concrete evidence of any supernatural kind of going-ons, if you will. But in 1975, one of California's most celebrated psychic investigators, a person called Jeannie Borgen, along with Joy Adams, decided that they were going to delve into the mystery of the house by conducting a seance at the stroke of midnight. And as they settled into the gloomy seance room, which was normally frequented by Sarah Winchester nightly, something apparently extraordinary happened. Now, Joy Adams observed that Jeannie appeared to somehow change her appearance. Her face looked like it had kind of aged like 40 years in like a mere 5 seconds. And then her hair seemed to turn this really kind of dark shade of grey. And her forehead just developed all these lines and creases in it. And then suddenly, Jeannie felt this kind of unbearable pain kind of coursing through her body, making it really difficult for her to even stand up. And she felt as though she was experiencing the symptoms of a heart attack. And then she collapses. And then she lets out this major like scream. And then moments later, she just regains her composure and breathing just kind of return back to normal. And then the pain disappears. And Jeannie kind of explains that she just felt this overwhelming urge of energy just overtake her body. And it was as if the spirit of Sarah Winchester herself was trying to consume her very being and take over her. But she says that she didn't feel any malice whatsoever. In Jeannie's words, she basically encountered a non-violent spirit in the form of Sarah Winchester.
So is this the only encounter where I guess a ghost has taken over someone's body?
So in regards to Jeannie and Joy, despite obviously the house's reputation of being filled with all these different ghosts, they say that they only encountered Sarah Winchester herself. So no other spirits whatsoever. So Sarah Winchester had become this kind of dominant spirit in her own creation. Maybe when she died, maybe she set free all the other ghosts. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, that's weird that she's still creeping around her own place. But then I guess she's put so much effort into it.
But then she clearly wasn't that enamored by it because she didn't mention what should happen to it after she had died, right? If she really cared about it and she wanted to stay there because she was so proud of her own creation, why would she not mention it in her will?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not quite sure.
But yet she's now trapped in her own creation. It's bizarre. So in 1981, a team from the Nirvana Foundation said that they had captured on an old-fashioned tape recorder the resonant, haunting sounds of the mansion's organ being played from within the attic. And that was the organ that Sarah Winchester would often play.
So who is playing it?
Sarah Winchester.
The ghost, Sarah Winchester.
Yeah, so this Nirvana Foundation had captured this music playing on this organ. I wonder if it was Teen Spirit.
I did say, you said Nevada. I was like, not the band, right?
Did I say Teen Spirit? Smells like Teen Spirit.
Yeah. I reckon that sounds good on the organ.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
So today, the Winchester Mystery House welcomes the public, inviting those curious to kind of explore this captivating mansion in the heart of Santa Clara Valley. So for a fee, you can tour the house and even have the option to stay overnight if you dare. A woman called Andrea Greigton. So she's connected to one of the staff members who work at the Winchester Mystery House. And she shares a chilling tale on a Reddit site. So Andrea mentions how guests would often remark on seeing actors in period attire wandering around the estate. However, the mansion doesn't employ actors at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the frequent sightings of individuals in period clothing just adds another unsettling layer to this weird story.
I guess you think it's someone playing a prank, but then I guess if this happened enough and it's just random,
yeah,
that's weird. That's very weird.
So the mansion's legendary status has influenced numerous portrayals of haunted houses in popular culture. So think of Casper the Friendly Ghost, think of Luigi's Mansion, think of Disneyland's Haunted Mansion in Disney World. All of them are inspired by the Winchester Mystery House. In fact, Walt Disney, not wanting a dilapidated, eerie house for his park, he directly got inspiration from the grandeur of the Winchester Mystery House itself. That's what he based his haunted mansion on.
Yeah, I can see definitely the insides. I can see how that's influenced it, that kind of grand sort of mansion with the turrets, the balconies.
Crazy. So in homage to the Winchester House, Disneyland advertised its haunted mansion as inhabited by 999 happy ghosts, rather than obviously the thousand. So one less spirit that is rumored to haunt the Winchester Mystery House. And every October, the Winchester Mystery House hosts a series of Halloween events titled Unhinged. And it's basically an immersive experience that's set in 1923 and revolves around this kind of whole narrative around a Hollywood couple throwing a lavish housewarming party. So the events include like a roaring 20s garden party, mysterious characters, spine-chilling surprises. And if you're eager to explore, then you can go and visit, or you can even go online and you can actually buy a video tour of the house for just $5.
Oh, really? That seems quite cheap, but I'd love to visit. Maybe that's why I should do that.
Watch the video. It's incredible. So I'll leave a little link to that in the show notes. It's $5. Pay it. It's 41 minutes. Watch it. You'll get to have a tour around a lot of the house. I mean, there's 161 rooms, but they'll tell you a lot about the history, about what happened and how it all went down.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and that is the story of the Winchester Mystery House.
I would love to visit that or have a dinner party or whatever, stay the night. I feel like it feels like a friendly haunted place, largely.
Yeah, so that's our Halloween episode, I guess.
Cool. That was good. I enjoyed that. I hope you guys have been entertained and spooked a little.
Yeah, we'll leave notes to everything we covered today in the show notes. So if you want to find out more about anything that we've covered today, all of these things to a degree exist. They're physical things in the real world. They're not made up stories.
You can go touch them.
You can go touch them.
I think. Yeah.
Not Annabelle.
Don't touch her. Don't get her out of the cabinet. You positively should not open that.
And so we come to the end of another episode of The Compendium, an assembly of fascinating and intriguing things. If you found today's episode both fascinating and intriguing, then remember to subscribe. Please leave us a review and don't just stop there. Schedule your episodes to download automatically as soon as they become available. Remember, we are on Instagram at The Compendium Podcast. So stop by and say hi. You can also visit us on our home on the web at compendiumpodcast.com. We release every Tuesday. And until then, remember, the next time you consider buying an antique doll or exploring an old mansion, you might just be inviting more than you bargained for. So stay curious and maybe a little bit cautious. See you next time.
See ya.